Hello everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by Smartly.io. This is the Friday show that reviews the most groundbreaking media news stories of the week. I'm your host, Marcus Johnson. In today's show, the future of shopping.
I think 2022 is all about the customer and also that they have more choices now, and their choices are across everything.
Experience versus physical goods.
I think there's something to be said too for the just joy and fun of opening a wrapped present. I think that might get lost in the mix of this stuff.
The best returns policies.
I would also say any retailer still asking for receipts or any sort of paperwork or proof. I mean, that's just not going to work, right?
Taco Bell's subscription service. An unpopular opinion about Netflix, and where did the game Monopoly even come from? All right, folks, join me for this episode. We have three people. Let's meet them. We start with our principal analyst who heads up our retail and e-commerce desk. It's Susie David Canyon.
Hey, Marcus. How's it going?
Hey, Susie. Good. Thanks for hanging out. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic, of course. Thanks for being here. We're also joined by one of our directors of forecasting. His name is Oscar Orozco.
Hey, Marcus. Happy to be on.
Hey, chap. Thanks for hanging out. And finally, we have our director of reports editing. You know him as Rahul Chadha.
Hi, guys. Nice to be here.
Hey, buddy. So, they're the three people we have for you. What are we going to be talking about? Well, we start with the story of the week. The future of shopping is where we will begin. We then move to the game of the week. What's the point? Where our three contestants will go head to head to try and give us the best takeaways they can from each of the four stories we have for you. And then we'll dish out a championship belt to the winner. We move then to a new segment we have for you. First time we did it was last week. So this will be the second time. That's how numbers work. It's called Uncommon Knowledge. We'll do that one in the third segment. I'll talk to you about that later on. And then Dinner Party Data is the one you all know, where we talk about random trivia for no apparent reason. Let's start with the story of the week, the future of shopping. The Economist notes that worldwide over $4 trillion was spent buying stuff online in 2020, almost a third more than the year before. We predict that this year Americans will spend $6.6 trillion on shopping total, brick and mortar and online, up 2.5% on 2021. 16% of those dollars will be spent online and the other 84% in stores. Next year, 18% of US shopping will be online, and by 2025, 22% will be. But what will most influence the future of shopping? Will it be interactive stores? Will it be live stream shopping? Will it be having things delivered in 10 seconds or fewer? We're going to ask our panel here. Let's start with Susie, who heads up our retail desk. Susie, the future of shopping, what jumps out to you as the thing you're paying the most attention to?
This is perfect timing because we're right now in the midst of the NRF Retail Big Show, where there is a lot of conversation about the future of shopping. And I guess my question to you, Marcus, is, are we talking about 2022 future of shopping, or are we talking about 2025 and beyond? Because I would have a different answer for you.
Right. Well, maybe I need two answers from you. It's up to you, really. I mean, what are they talking about at the NRF? Are they talking about just this year, or does it go beyond that?
Well, I mean, I think, which makes me very excited, the NRF, their biggest key themes are very in line with what our 5 trends were for 2022, which is around sustainability and around the physical digital store and how that's coming together, omni-channel really in its truest form. There is a lot of conversation around supply chain, which is not something that we were typically covering, but it's something we're going to start covering more and more. I think for me, when I think about 2022, and we sort of talked about this on our last Reimagining Retail, it's around, there was a long foray into getting new customers. And I think 2022 is all about the customer and retaining that customer. And there's a lot of conversations at NRF around amplification of the power of the customer and that their voice and also that they have more choices now. And their choices are across everything from how they want to pay, where they want to shop, when they want to shop. And so I think that's probably the most immediate future of shopping, is thinking about the customer and thinking about not just the customer as one group of people, but individually, and giving them the choice and letting them define what is convenient and easy for them.
So rather coincidentally, the answer that I wrote down when I was thinking about the future of shopping was customer relationships with brands will matter more. And what I was thinking there is, it was a video from The Economist saying that retailers will have to prove their loyalty to the shopper and how the balance of power has shifted more to the consumer. And I've put down demands for personalization, much more demands from the consumer for things to be personalized, growing number of subscription services, Amazon Prime, locking people in to that ecosystem. Is it harder for other companies, for Walmart Plus? Would they have even more subscribers if Amazon Prime wasn't so powerful and so addictive? And also multiple sustainability initiatives, people really thinking through their choices. Does this company align with my beliefs in terms of sustainability and social values and all the rest of it? Your thoughts there, Susie, on that developing relationship with the consumer and how it's going to be hard to hold on to them, but also harder for other companies to maybe pull those customers away who have built those more everlasting relationships. Or maybe that's nonsense. Maybe people don't have as much brand loyalty as they used to, and this isn't true at all.
So I think 2020 into 2021 really changed that dynamic around brand loyalty. And you're right. And I heard it over and over again where consumers just have that much more control and the power is no longer quite as squarely in the retailer or the brand or the CPG company's side, but it's really the retailer has to work very hard at keeping that customer. A very long time ago, there was this rule of thumb that it cost around 5 times more to get a new customer than to keep a customer. Now, I don't know what the numbers are now as we go into 2022, but there's definitely, in addition to social media, consumers have so many different outlets of showing their disdain, and other consumers are listening, and we know the power of reviews, for example. And so I think it's really critical that retailers think about each of their customers and how they can keep getting them to come back.
For me, it's really exciting, more so to picture in-store shopping, right? And that's kind of the way I took this exercise. One of the words I've seen a few times over the last few months has been the omni-channel customer service and how that's going to look. So when I picture in-store, whether, for me, it's more of a 5 to 10 years out. I picture, you mentioned it, personalization. So, maybe in-store, there'll be, less sizes and less products and things like this, especially when I'm thinking about apparel. But this omnichannel customer service desk will allow people to shop for things that might not be in stores, in stock, but to be able to have that delivered, like you said, in 10 seconds, maybe not, maybe a day or two. But that's kind of what I was picturing, along with the personalization. So maybe being able to personalize goods much, much more than we see now. We've seen things with like Nike and, athletic wear brands and stuff over the years, but much more of that personalization. The only other thing I would add, you touched on this too, Marcus, so you took this from my mouth as well. Subscription rule, it's okay. Subscriptions for me, I just think there's such a fondness for them at the moment. I think retailers will continue to use them to give out deals and promotions, to sign up people for loyalty programs, things like this. So I just expect to see more of that subscription model moving forward.
Hey, Oscar, how do you see that service center you're talking about different than it is today? Like, so many retailers already have some sort of center where you can do your returns, you can pick up what you bought online, you can talk to an associate.
I guess the way I see it is it's going to take up much more of a footprint in the actual store, right? So I picture less displays and shelves and things like this, and just more of this focus on that, however it might look, a huge desk. So that's kind of more of what I was referring to, as well as just, it digitizing a bit more, right? So moving in that direction as we move more into omnichannel.
Yeah. Rahul, let's come to you to wrap up the segment. When you think of the future of shopping, what comes to mind?
I think the thing that strikes me the most is cashierless checkout. And I think it's because I'm still caught up kind of in the effects of COVID. So does it provide new value to a consumer who's trying to limit their time in store, But it's kind of at odds with this idea that consumers want a more kind of bespoke experience from a sales associate in store too. So I don't know, those ideas, I think there's a little bit of dissonance between them, I guess, in my head right now still, but I'm curious to see how the cashierless stuff plays out.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about just walk out technology, you grab something off the shelf in like an Amazon Go store and it charges your credit card because of cameras and sensors. It can tell what you've picked up, and then you walk out of the store having seemingly paid for nothing, but it's charged you discreetly. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not just like getting rid of cashiers and having self-checkout and things like that.
Yeah, I think the technology that basically limits time in store, this is all heavily dependent on how COVID plays out. But I think as Omicron has taught us, we can't, say that we're out of the woods yet with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's what we've got time for the story of the week. It's time now for the game of the week, but first, a quick word from our sponsor, Smartly.io. Hi to all the social media marketers out there, listen up. Social platforms have become more important than ever for brands. You know this. So if you're looking to scale up your social advertising in 2022, look no further. Smartly.io is number one in social media advertising. They help brands automate every step of the process, combining creative production and ad buying to unlock greater performance. To get the brand new 2022 social advertising trends report, go to smartly.io/eMarketer. Folks, we are back. It's time now for the game of the week. Today's game, What's the Point? Where I read out 4 stories and have contestants Susie, Oscar and Rahul tell us what they think is the main takeaway of the story. Okay answers get 1 point, good answers get 2, and answers that give you that same feeling as when you wish you could get out of your plans and just chill, and then the other person cancels. Oh yes, answers that leave you with that feeling, they get you 3 points. Each person gets 20 seconds to answer before they hear this. Whoever has the most points wins, gets the last word. We start with Oscar. Experience versus physical goods. eMarketer briefing director Jeremy Goldman noted in December 2021, 51% of shoppers intended to buy physical gifts. 17% planned to offer an experience instead, according to Adobe. But when it comes to receiving gifts, 62% of folks prefer experiences over physical goods, according to travel booking platform GetYourGuide.com. Jeremy notes that those numbers may be skewed in favor of travelers, given the source, but spa treatments and concert tickets were the most popular experiences, according to the Adobe study, at 25% apiece. Plane tickets and cooking classes also ranked highly. So, Oscar, the balance between experience and physical goods, what's the point?
I mean, it makes a ton of sense to me. I also think, I thought of it as like we live in a world where, you know, we subscribe to services, we buy digital goods and apps and downloads and things that aren't physically ours. So I think we're moving past that, you know, belief that something, you know, a good gift has to be something that you can physically feel, right? And so I think it makes a ton of sense. I think it's a generational thing too. Maybe the new generations more so than the past ones. So it's kind of a positive thing. And totally, life is much more about once in a lifetime trips and concerts and experiences than just things that are disposable, you know, after a short amount of time.
Susie.
So I think this is not new. The numbers are probably different past COVID times. And I think there are 3 things that really come to mind. It was the lockdowns. People are more interested in real life events. So that's experiences. It's the idea around all the supply chain issues. So those numbers are probably even higher now, because you can't buy the goods that you wanted to buy. But also, I think, sort of like Oscar was saying, it's a mindset shift, and sustainability is really coming to a head, and everybody's talking about it. And so gifting an experience over an item is part of that sustainability mindset. What I would say to retailers is, it's not new. Find people to partner with. If you sell Molton Brown products, find the Molton Brown spa that you can send people to that, or give them a coupon to go there, right? So think through what experiences make sense for your consumers and target those brand partnerships to try and get more people into your stores.
Rahul.
Yeah, I struggle with this too, because, you know, there's a lot of research that says people enjoy experiences more over physical goods. But when I got my Christmas wish list from everybody, guess what? It was a bunch of physical goods. And, you know, I really struggle with trying to figure out how do I buy experiences for people. I think there's something to be said too for the just joy and fun of opening a wrapped present. You know, I think that might get lost in the mix of this stuff. I bought a lot of presents for my nieces and my nephew. And kids just don't understand this idea of an experience as a present, you know, at a younger age. So, I think some entrenched habits kind of make this shift to the experience thing, along with COVID, for obvious reasons, a little bit more difficult maybe than is presented.
Yeah, I like that point, Rahul. I bought a lot more experiences this year for folks than I would have typically, because there were the supply chain issues and I was worried about getting a few things. So I went for more experiences. And I found kind of a similar problem, that it's hard to find something from that experience that you can give as the gift, because a lot of the time it's just a receipt that you get or an email confirmation. And the one experience that I bought from my parents, I got them a voucher to go down to a restaurant in Mayfair. And they send a little purple box, very fancy purple box that you can open and the vouchers inside, and it's all really well presented. And I thought that was great because an experience, I think, also should have the option to come with something that is physical that people can open on the day of whatever the occasion is. Yeah, the question, did the scales tip in experiences favor versus physical goods because of last holiday season's flood of out-of-stock messages, or was this just a blip? One of the questions Jeremy posed in his article. We move to the second round. We start with Susie. The best returns policies. Nearly 4 out of 10 shoppers will be returning holiday gift items they didn't want, according to a Retail Me Not survey, notes Marianne Wilson of Chain Store Age. She writes that Retail Me Not compiled a list of 23 stores with the best returns policies. Best Buy and Macy's, for example, were offering extended holiday returns periods. However, Nordstrom, they don't even have a returns policy. There is no returns policy. There's no return time limit. There's no receipt required and no paperwork at all. Just ensure the original tag and barcode remain on the item being returned. Susie, the best returns policies, what's the point?
So I think this is really a lot of tension here, right? From a retailer perspective, returns are very expensive. From a consumer perspective, if the return policies are too restrictive, then you're going to go shop somewhere else. And it becomes sort of like an added reason why you're going to shop at one retailer versus another, depending on how easy the returns process is. I think from a retailer perspective, you need to find that right balance, and you need to try and encourage people to go to stores to return their items, and then try and get them with a different item while they're there. So train your salespeople to say like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't like this X. What about that? You know, and so that you can try and at least capture some sort of halo sale post-return.
Rahul.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to see that Nordstrom's vaunted returns policy still remains in effect. I feel like there are all these legends about people showing up with used car tires and getting money back for them at Nordstrom. This also reminded me of LL Bean changing its returns policy based on the fact that some consumers were taking advantage of it. I think they used to have a Nordstrom-like policy that didn't have time limits and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I think it's a thing that retailers are, like Susie mentioned, are becoming a lot more cost conscious around. So I think some of the more liberal return policies that retailers or sellers, I think, are probably rethinking.
Oscar.
I will say, though, part of what we discussed earlier, the shift to omni-channel, one of the main things is making returns easier, right? So I do understand the pain points for the retailers, but it seems Nordstrom's policies should be the best. And so I think they have to adapt. I would also say any retailer still asking for receipts or any sort of paperwork or proof, I mean, that's just not going to work, right? I saw the example of scanning the code on the item or just looking you up with your email address. So that should be as much as a shopper has to do to return something. So whatever it has to do to, you know, make it cost efficient, you know, the easier the returns, the better.
Yeah, speaking of ease of returns was the option buyers find most important of all the options when purchasing something new, according to an OMD OCG survey from August of last year. They surveyed folks in Germany, Spain, China, Australia, the UK, and the US. Move to our third round. We start with Rahul. The empty promise of instant delivery. The pandemic changed how shoppers think about convenience, but on-demand delivery can only offer so much, writes Terry Nguyen of Vox. He notes a recent lengthy Starbucks line that he was waiting in made him realize that this wait was the result of his stubborn preference for buying coffee the old-fashioned way, and that there was, in fact, an escape from this: mobile ordering. Thomas Holman, director for Arizona State's Center for Services Leadership, calls it the Amazonification of business. People want things immediately, otherwise they'll pitch a fit. Americans have also been courted by a growing number of apps that offer instant dates, food, taxis, etc. But Mr. Nguyen argues that despite the booming landscape of instant delivery apps, most have yet to yield sustainable returns for the investors pumping them with billions of dollars. One-day shipping is expensive and dependent on a vast underpaid workforce that smaller retailers can't afford, he writes. Rahul, the empty promise of instant delivery, what's the point?
Yeah, there's so much, I think, to unpack here. One is that, you know, these models only really work in areas with the density to support the idea. There are a lot of infrastructural and labor needs that you referenced that I think a lot of people are going to have trouble addressing. I think the idea is also at odds with some other competing ideas around sustainability. Is this really the most sustainable way to get like a pack of gum that I want? And lastly, I think, the VC money in this sector is sloshing around. It's subsidizing the cost of these services. And I wonder what the actual cost to the consumer is. I think when you take the subsidies away, it's really instant delivery as a luxury service.
Oscar.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that what Rahul said at the end, just it's a luxury service. And I think, consumers, we have to consider we're kind of stuck in this limbo right now of mediocrity. This war the retailers are going through. And I think it's part of the growing pains. And so exactly what Rahul just mentioned, which is providing goods and services at the right speed, but, making it cost efficient for them. So I think that's what we're stuck in the middle of. I think from the consumer side, they just have to be more mindful of this and temper expectations. And if they are happy with how a product or service is provided and the amount of time it takes for it to be shipped, then reward that specific retailer, but just temper expectations. And this is again from the consumer standpoint.
Susie.
I love this article because it made me feel heard. 80% of dollars are spent in store. And the way the writer talks about how he feels like he's trespassing on company property, that it's the warehouse, right? Like how many times have I gone to the Whole Foods and the shelves are empty and I see all the pickers trying to get the food and the items that I want and now there's nothing left. I think I'm taking the time to go to the store for my own instant gratification and I took the energy to go and now all of a sudden it's not happening. Stores are becoming a little bit more friction filled because of these types of services. And so I just think we need to figure it out. Omnichannel is here to stay. And as a retailer, you got to figure it out.
Yeah, for context on Susie's point, Susie, that I gravitated towards that part as well. Tech writer Drew Austin said the implicit message of basically less staff in stores and a worsening customer experience is that we should have stayed at home and ordered online, saying these spaces are no longer for us. To what Susie said, we're effectively trespassing in the company's warehouse, and the Manhattan resembles a post-COVID retail wasteland populated by vacated chain stores that are being converted into instant delivery hubs. Excellent points, folks. We move to our final round, Taco Bell's subscription service. We start with Oscar. Taco Bell has announced a subscription that lets you redeem one taco per day for 30 days, and it's called the Taco Lovers Pass. Why not? Writes Mitchell Clark of The Verge. You pay $10 for the pass in the Taco Bell app, get access to a secret menu, then pick which taco you'd like to redeem at a participating location. Mr. Clark admits that the program isn't necessarily a subscription per se, since technically it's a one-time purchase that can be repurchased when the original 30 days is over. And it's also only available for an extended limited time. But given that you can re-up, Mr. Clark counts it as a subscription, even if you have to do so manually. However, Panera does have an actual subscription service, which they launched right before the pandemic in February, March time of 2020, where for $9 a month, you get unlimited iced and hot coffee and unlimited hot tea. So Oscar, Taco Bell's subscription service, what's the point?
Aside from confirming to the listeners that I will be looking to see if my local Taco Bell is participating, because I love this, I really do. I actually didn't know about the Panera example, but I do think we talked about it earlier. Consumers love subscriptions; they like deals. They've become popular for the main reason, which is convenience, right? And what is perceived as a deal. It plays into people's desire to control what they spend, and for the companies, it realizes recurring revenue. So I just think it's a great idea. Whether it, QSR and how they move into subscriptions will look exactly like this. I don't think it's going to be like that. But, whether it ends up just being a smart PR campaign and increases sales for a while, that's, I think, enough. But I think this is a good start.
Susie.
So I think subscription services are an interesting one, right? For $10, you can get 30 tacos, basically, is what they're saying. They're clearly losing money on that. They're not selling a taco for less than $1. So it's really a marketing play in this instance. I checked. There are 1/3 less Taco Bells than McDonald's. Like McDonald's would never be able to do this, right? You are more likely to go and get a hamburger a day than a taco a day. So I just think for Taco Bell, it really is a great, very clever sort of sense of urgency. Let's get to it. And even if you buy one taco, maybe two, you're not going to feel so badly about it because you participated in the hype.
Rahul.
Yeah, I agree with both of these guys. It's a smart marketing play. But I do wonder, too, it reminded me of some recent bad press that Toyota received after they wanted to charge their car owners a recurring fee for keyless entry. And I think companies need to be careful. I know that the idea of recurring revenue and subscription is very tempting. But, as a consumer, you can kind of sometimes feel like you're a stone and they're trying to wring every last drop of blood out of you that they can. So I think companies can go a step too far. I don't think Taco Bell does that in this case, just to be clear. I think this is like kind of a funny idea. And as Susie said, it's probably, at the worst case, is like sort of a loss leader for them.
All right. That's all we got time for the game of the week. This week's winner. I take a drum roll. Rahul is this week's winner of the game of the week. He gave like 1 million points for just one story. After that, I did stop counting the score. Congratulations to Rahul. He won by quite a margin. Well done, mate.
That was a great one. I don't remember as good of a, sort of
a round.
Yeah, round in a long time. So that was good. Just
it was a good game.
My comment.
The suspension?
I know.
Was it the suspension of who's going to win?
Oh, no. Everyone knew. Deep down in their souls. Rahul, final word, mate.
Oh, I would just give a shout out to the HBO Max streaming show Station 11. And I would note a word of caution. It is about a pandemic, so it might kind of like be triggering of trauma, but I found it like life affirming and amazing. So highly recommend that show. I think it's completely available now. They're releasing it serially, but it's all out now if you like to binge watch.
Station 11, HBO Max. HBO anything? HBO, who knows? Where is it? Where can you find it? Where are you watching it?
HBO Max is where I'm watching it.
Is Max.
I believe it's streaming specific. Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's all we've got time for the game of the week. It's time now for Uncommon Knowledge. Welcome to a brand new segment called Uncommon Knowledge, where we offer up some unpopular or atypical opinions about things. We start with a few unpopular opinions about everyday things and then ask one of our analysts for an unpopular opinion that they've been thinking about related to the media world. As I mentioned last week, this segment was inspired by BBC Radio 1's Unpopular Opinion feature, where UK callers phone in and give their unpopular opinions to host Greg James and celebrities who then react to them. So we'll take one unpopular opinion from that show to show you how it goes. We'll take one from the internet and then one from what would typically be our analysts, but I'm filling in today with an unpopular opinion. So let's play. It's not a game. We'll just start. I don't know why I keep saying that. From unpopular opinion from Radio 1, one of them was, selfies are not cool. At the end of the day, you're just on your own, taking a picture of yourself. Thoughts?
I could not agree more. And the worst selfies are when there are people around you and you see the person taking a selfie and their friends are watching. I agree. So I can't.
I'd die of embarrassment if I had to take one of myself with no one's around, let alone when there are humans.
And your friend group is there, as if it's so cool to have a selfie.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I will say I think the rise of the selfie has led, in my personal experience, to a loss of like random encounters with people just asking them to take a picture of me at like a tourist destination. So I'm definitely guilty of taking like tourist type selfies just because I don't want to like interact with somebody, I guess, or I just don't think to. But I do kind of miss like the serendipity of that.
Yeah. Could you take our picture? Would you mind taking happen all the time?
Unpopular opinion, I just take selfies, especially with my significant other.
Of course you do.
And it's because I don't want to talk to anyone else, It's like I could be surrounded, just, they're not that important. It's just a memory. Just a memory.
All right.
Do you know that I have actually gone to people and said, hey, do you want me to take your picture? Before COVID, I didn't want to touch phones now, but before. And I think people think it's weird if you go
they do look at
and
you
say,
right now.
Yeah, I only think it's weird when you ask them for $5 afterwards.
I didn't.
I wouldn't think it's weird. I think it's nice. That's happened. People have asked, and take them up on the offer.
Yeah. All right, folks. Another one for you from the internet. Making the bed is pointless. How do we feel?
Is that an unpopular opinion? Because I'm firmly in the corner of that unpopular opinion. I do not make my bed.
Yeah,
oh,
I'm on the side of this one.
Most people
I
don't.
might make an attempt if there are people also in the house, but
oh my gosh,
often,
you guys.
Yeah.
No,
This is
it's
like
better-
putting milk in your tea.
well, it's not even remotely the same. But also, you can argue that if you don't make it, it's more practical because if you have the sheet kind of pulled back, then you're just getting straight in. You have to make it and then mess it up
you
again.
You have to make your bed every day. Making your bed is the first thing you're doing that is productive in your day and sets order and structure. You have to make your bed.
I want to throw a random potentially unpopular opinion in, which is my wife and I have separate blankets, Icelandic style. And it's amazing. Like, we don't fight over the covers. We can roll around. I can burrito myself. It's never a problem. And when it's cuddle time, we bridge the blanket. Everybody's like, well, what do you do when you want to cuddle? It's like very easy problem to solve. So I just want to throw that idea out to the world.
Wow.
Give
what
it a
about
shot.
if they could zip together and you could unzip them when you were finished with cuddle time?
That's a lot of work to do in a darkened bedroom.
That's a lot of work.
Velcro. Let's go with Velcro.
Yeah, Velcro is good.
There we go.
Rahul, does she make her bed and you don't make your side?
No, and I think that's part of the reason why making a bed with two blankets is just also a kind of strange way to do it. Like, what's the appropriate technique? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
you just fold the blanket over on one half of the bed. I don't know.
Yeah, what does an unmade bed look like too? I mean, it just depends, right? Because mine is pretty much made, but easy to get into, right? So kind of half maybe. Mm-hmm. So that's
so then how do you guys feel about the deck pillows? That means you have zero decoration pillows on your
don't
bed.
even get me started.
No.
Holy moly,
What
I am never going to look at you
waste
guys
of
the
time.
same way.
Yeah, no.
Ever.
You just take them off again. Who's decoration for who is just going in your room being like, oh,
for
yeah,
yourself.
your room looks nice.
It's like, why do you get dressed to go on Zoom?
Terrible, because people have to see me.
Not to get hyperbolic about this, but decorative pillows are a war crime. It should be banned.
Thank you. They're the worst.
Throw pillows to throw out the window.
Whoa.
Okay, so just for the record, Mum, if you're listening to this episode, which she won't be, I make the bed. I make my bed. Okay. However, I am recording this at my parents' house, so she might actually literally be listening from the other side of the door. So I do make it. Okay. All right. One more from me. One more unpopular opinion from myself related to work, kind of. So Netflix, my unpopular opinion. I think Netflix could increase their prices by 50% in the US and none of their subscribers would leave. So 50% would be like raising it from, say, the standard plan, $14. You could jack it up to $21. And I doubt that literally no people would leave because they're so addicted to it. Netflix is being nice by slowly increasing it over time, about once every year and a half since 2014 or so. But they could crank it up and we'd have no control because we're addicted. So Netflix, this comes off the back of some news. Netflix raising subscription prices in the US and Canada for the first time since 2020. The video streaming giants increased the monthly cost of its US basic plan by $1 to $10. Its standard plan increased to $15.49 from $14, so up $1.50. And the premium plan went from $18 to $20. So my argument here, my case for this unpopular opinion. So there's kind of the video subscription paradox, kind of like the privacy paradox. People say they want privacy, but then they continue to use services which don't protect their privacy. What you say and what you do, two very different things. In October 2020, Limelight Networks found that the overwhelming number one reason Americans would cancel their streaming video subscription was because the price increased. 2 months later, in December 2020, YouGov found the same. However, in reality, in October 2020, Netflix increased the price of their standard plan from $13 to $14. Netflix added 450,000 new US and Canadian subscribers from Q4 2020 to Q1 2021, so after the price increase. So not only did their net not go down, it went up a tiny bit. What's the streaming video ad model preferred by Americans as of September of last year, according to Criteo? Pay a premium price to watch all the content without ads, 37%, versus pay nothing to watch all the content with ads, 24%. The share of US adults who subscribe to more than one major SVOD service went from 55% in 2020 to 74, from 55 to 74 in 2021. That's from Leichtman Research Group. And according to Hub Research, the share of Americans who have just one SVOD service went down 2020 to 2021. The share who had just two SVOD services also went down over those years. The share who had 3+ went from 28% to 40%. All that to say, I think they can increase it by as much as they want. Quick thought experiment. If you were paying $14 a month for Netflix and they upped it to $19.99, would you really cancel it? $6 extra a month. It's a Starbucks coffee. Thoughts?
I agree with everything you've said. I just don't know if like a 50% hike in 1 year.
They won't do it.
That might be
it
might be a little bit. But if you were to tell me 10 to 15% for the next 4 or 5 years, I would 100% agree with you. I would also add everything you provided as support. I agree with. I think it's really interesting that survey that people seem to say, well, if the prices are up, that's the main reason I'll get rid of a service. I almost think that Netflix, out of all streaming services, is exempt from that. Really, I truly believe that. The only other thing I'd add is keep in mind too, as we continue to see the cannibalization of paid TV by these services, by skinny bundles, people are going to have more money in their pockets for paying more for streaming services that they love, which Netflix is at the top of that list.
I don't agree with you guys. I think that Netflix obviously has huge research teams, and they're trying to figure out what is that price elasticity, and they would never, that's why it's $1 at a time, right? It's $1 every year. They'll probably get to the $20, $30, $40 at some point over time. They would never do it so quickly. And I think, like you said, there's consumer mindset around what they will do and what they actually do, which is different. And also there's some sort of psychology around numbers, like $19.99 seems to pass a little bit easier than $21.50, or like the numbers ending in 9 are supposed to be really much more easy for a consumer to digest than ending in a 0. The other thing I would say is that if you're going from $2 to $4, that 50% increase is not such a big deal. At some point, that percentage increase is not what people are looking at. They're just looking at the dollar number increase.
Yeah, I agree completely with Susie. I think there's definitely a tipping point where people are going to look at a cost and start thinking about churning, especially when they're stacking streaming services to replace some version of a skinny bundle, especially among cord cutters or cord nevers, or however you want to describe people who just don't pay for cable TV anymore. I do it all the time. I look at like what service I want, what movie do I want to watch. I subscribe to Disney Plus for a month. I subscribe, I go in, and I cancel the subscription 2 seconds later. And then I just eat up all I can and wait for the next kind of piece of content I'm interested in watching come out. And it's a reflection of the balkanization of the streaming world now, I think. Content's not uniform across streaming services, and, Netflix has lost a lot of like licensed content. So I am curious to see, honestly, how that plays out, and them maybe adopting an opposition to their all-you-can-eat sort of binge release model if they start serializing their releases more often to try to reduce churn.
Great points, folks. The one other thing I had was that you could argue that US and Canada subscribers, they've been flat for Netflix since Q4 of 2020. I said they went up by 450,000, but by and large, they've been stuck at 74 million since Q4 of 2020. They've been at 74 million since then every quarter. But our forecasting team, which Oscar hangs out on, expect them to be stuck there because they've reached saturation in America. 53% of Americans will watch Netflix this year, 53% next year, 54% the year after that. So it's not really a question of whether any of these moves will affect those numbers going up, because they've kind of hit that ceiling. It's whether or not any of those moves will bring them down at all. That is all we've got time for Uncommon Knowledge. It's time now for Dinner Party Data. Part of the show where we tell you the most interesting thing that we've learned this week. Rahul won the game of the week, so he kicks us off with his dinner party data. Rahul, what you got for us?
So I've been reading a book about Radiohead, which I've said it out loud, so it's pretty nerdy. But I've learned that Radiohead's... Okay, bear with me because it's kind of a long and somewhat convoluted story. I'm going to do my best. So Radiohead's originally was On a Friday, which is a terrible name. They took their band name Radiohead from a song called Radiohead, which is from the Talking Heads album True Stories. And so this goes one layer deeper. So the name of the Talking Heads song itself was inspired by the actor Steven Tobolowsky, who's a character actor that you might know as Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day. He's the guy who accosts Bill Murray on the street. He's like kind of annoying insurance salesman, but he's a character actor who, if you saw his face, you'd probably recognize it. And so the story behind that is that Tobolowsky claimed to David Byrne, the lead singer of the Talking Heads, that he had had psychic experiences in college, hence the name of the song Radiohead, hence the name of the band Radiohead.
Wow.
That is new to me. Did not know that.
That is fascinating. Yeah. I'm stunned.
I tried to warn you that it was pretty nerdy.
That was a lot to have to follow, but it was good. Very nice. Any other little tidbits coming out of that book?
No, the book kind of read like a extended blog post, which, I didn't see as a problem, but, it just went off on a lot of tangents, honestly. I would have been more interested in like some deep dives on like Radiohead's, I don't know, like recording process or something like that.
I'm always fascinated with how bands came to the name that they have. Jimmy Eat World, I think, was because the lead singer's like younger brother, or one of the people in the band's younger brother, like draw a picture, and it was a picture of Jimmy, who was like this bully at school, who was like eating a picture of the world, and that was why they had called that. I find it fascinating how they come up with their names. Very good. Susie.
So earlier this year, which was not that long ago, but Apple and a bunch of others are in a $1 trillion club. Do you guys know who are the ones in the $1 trillion club? Outside of Apple, who's number one?
Google. Microsoft
2.
Facebook.
Google 4 worldwide, 3 for the US, Amazon. And then Tesla just joined last October the $1 trillion club. Facebook comes in at number 6 for the US, worldwide number 7 with $890 billion. Not a shabby market cap, but still not quite up there.
They fell out.
I was very surprised to see that there were 3 financial services companies in the top 10 for the US. And the company everybody talks about all the time, but it is based out of China, Tencent, owner of TikTok. Do you guys know what their market cap is? They rank number 11
billion?
11
worldwide, 550.
Wow.
I'm rounding up, 550
thought
billion.
that'd be higher.
No,
With
there's
the
only
three-
5 in the US that are at the 1 trillion, and then there is a Saudi company that is almost 2 trillion. So it's between
Aramco?
Microsoft and Alphabet. Saudi, yes, that's the one.
Well, who are the 3 financial services companies?
Berkshire Hathaway
Yeah.
at 720 billion. Visa, which I thought was crazy, at 400, and I'm rounding up 70 billion. And JP Morgan Chase at 450.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Oscar, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna keep this a little lighter. So what was everyone's favorite animal growing up?
Tiger.
Tiger. Okay. And
Dog.
dogs,
Bunny.
bunnies. Okay. Most people say like things like tiger, animals like tiger, lions and bears and dogs. You know what mine was? The rhino. The rhinoceros. No, the rhinoceros. I don't know why. I think I just love the horns, but I love the rhino. So I wanted to give a cool few little fun facts
see
on
that
rhinos. No, you didn't know. I thought I would have told you. Rhinos, my favorite animal. So a couple fun facts on rhinos, because many people don't know much about them. When white rhinos are the largest, they can weigh 3,500 kilograms. So only elephants are bigger mammals than white rhinos. So very, very big animals. And it's impressive considering they only eat grass and leaves. Crazy, huh? They must eat a lot of that.
So 3,500 kilograms is looked up in pounds. Folks, 8,000 pounds.
8,000 pounds. Yeah.
insane.
Impressive,
All right, keep
impressive. Male rhinos are called bulls and females are called cows. The young ones are called calves. So those are familiar names. But you know what they're called when they're all in a group? They're called a crash. I've always thought that was cool. Crash, pretty cool.
That is cool.
They
Fitting.
they can run from 30 to 40 miles per hour, so they're very fast. So don't try to outrun
terrifying.
a rhino. Yeah, it's very terrifying. Their horns are made up of keratin, which is the same protein that is the basis of our hair and nails. So it doesn't sound like it'd be hard, but it's hard. Trust me. Don't mess with a rhino. They also make many.
Did you try to mess with a rhino? It sounds
I've
like
gone
you
to
tried.
zoos to see rhinos, so no, never mess with them though. But yes,
All right.
love rhinos.
Sounds
Two
nice.
last things. They make funny noises when they're communicating. During confrontations, they growl and make trumpet calls. Black rhinos snort when they're angry, and they also use like sneeze-like noises to sound off alarms when predators are nearby and when they're scared. So I'll finish off with saying that on average, there are about 2 rhinos that are poached or killed every day. Many are, near extinction. There's like 70 Javan rhinos in the world, 100 in Africa. So, just wanted to finish this off by saying, go to savetherhino.org. Help save a rhino, people, if you love them as much as I do, or just to read more about them.
Very nice.
I always wonder who gets to decide what a group of animals gets called. Like that must be like
Yeah.
such a fun committee to be a member of.
I've wondered that too. I have no idea. But some of the names are kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, let me see. A group of ravens. You guys know what that's called?
Oh, right. Is that a murder of crows or something like that? Or am I getting raven crow
an
mixed up?
unkindness.
Unkindness.
That's what they're called?
A group
The group?
of ravens.
Yeah, a group of ravens is called an unkindness.
How would you put that in a sentence?
I have no idea.
The
I don't know why you would be talking about it.
He's attacked by an unkindness
Yeah.
of ravens.
An unkindness, apparently, or there's a few different terms, but I think unkindness is coming up the most. Yeah. What's a murder? Do you say a murder?
I have a recollection of a group of crows being called a murder, and it's funny because, I feel like they're probably related closely to ravens if they're not the same thing. But I mean, both of those names are ominous, but also
It's crows.
appropriate.
You're right.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Huh.
Sounds like a show they should make out of that, right? Like, I don't know. Just this is a cool name.
Did you guys have that young kid's tale of the crow with the cheese in his mouth? And then I don't remember what it was. The other animal was asking for help, and then he dropped the cheese, and then he got to eat it. Am I making this
Don't
up?
think so.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like a dream you might have had, or a story that was
I'm
made
gonna
up.
look it up and
for you
I
when
am
you
it
were
to you
small.
all.
Okay.
No, there's definitely the crow with the cheese in his mouth.
It sounds pretend.
Yeah, the fox and the crow bedtime story.
The fox and the crow. Oh, it's really a thing.
Yeah, the fable
Fox and the
Oh,
Crow
okay.
sounds...
How do you not know
no,
about
that
the
does sound
fables?
more familiar. Yeah.
of the Ace. I don't know how to say its name, but I had a whole book
Aesop
of the fables
tales?
of
Yeah,
Aesop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
Guys,
familiar.
come on.
No idea what you're talking about.
You didn't
all
make
right.
your bed and you didn't read fables before bedtime. Come on.
So, who invented Monopoly? Well, in 1903, a left-wing feminist called Lizzie Magie patented the board game we now know as Monopoly, but she never gets credit. A Forbes article by John Greathouse notes that Miss Maggie was particularly influenced by Henry George, whose 1879 book, Progress and Poverty, espoused a belief that workers should own what they produce, but natural resources and economic rents derived from land should be owned by society. In the early 1900s, motivated by Mr. George's teachings, Miss Maggie created the Landlord's Game, as she called it, and applied for a patent in 1903. The game's intent, this is horribly ironic, the game's intent was to demonstrate the evils of concentrated land ownership. She'd hoped players would reject the game's winner-take-all strategy, where only one player ends up owning all of the game's land as everyone else is driven into bankruptcy. So she created a tool to teach people that it's evil, and everyone loved it. Then along came, at the time, unemployed salesperson Charles Darrow, who modified the design of the Landlord's Game. Miss Maggie had invented and took it to Parker Brothers in 1934. The game was initially rejected, but Mr. Darrow was undeterred, creating handcrafted versions of the game and investing the proceeds from these handmade versions into 5,000 professionally printed units, which he sold in a Philadelphia department store. Following his success, the Parker Brothers came back to the table the following year, 1935, and negotiated a licensing deal. The game was soon selling 5,000 units a week and went on to become the most successful board game of all time. A Forbes article says it is estimated that over 250 million Monopoly games have been sold around the world, played by billions of people.
Yeah, I love the optimism that she came at humanity with. It's very optimistic and not real at all. All my memories of Monopoly are of our family nights, game nights ending in ruin, like tears, slam doors,
Civil war.
acrimony, accusations, arguments, just the whole nine.
Just a lot of stealing too, huh? You can't trust
Theft,
anyone to be
yeah.
the bank. Yeah, I love Monopoly. Love it.
The alliances, the shifting alliances, like it's brutal.
Yeah, the passive-aggressive family politics.
I'm playing this with my nephew and nieces now, and there is no stealing or alliances involved with these Gen Zers, but there certainly are some disagreements around who should go first and sort of bending some of the rules around.
Yeah,
When
no
are
one
you
knows the
allowed
rules.
to make houses?
No one knows the real rules.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all we've got time for today's episode. Thank you so much to my guests for hanging out. Thank you to Susie.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thanks as always.
And thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. To ask us questions or just say hi, you can email us at podcast@emarketer.com. We'll see you guys on Monday for the Behind the Numbers Daily and eMarketer podcast made possible by smartly.io. Happy weekends.
God, so much pressure.
Yeah. Mainly on you, Susie. Everyone
I
else
know.
did fine.
Well, did everybody notice that I didn't talk about, you know what?
Until now. You literally can't help yourself.
I know. I had a thought about it for a second, but well, it's out there.
There you go. Anyways, did you see how Rahul said thanks as always because he knows that he wins every time he comes on?
Yeah, he's like the Golden State Warriors of the game of the week.